Welcome back. This is your host, Noura Masri, and this is Echoes of Impact with Noura. I'm really excited to introduce my next guest because now I know tax season is over and a lot of you guys started to receive those letters from the IRS. And I know you get nervous, but if you get the knowledge, you will be more relaxed. I know you're still going to be worried, but when you get informed, you will know what to do. And this is why I brought my friend, Timilin Bones. She is the America's favorite EA. She is amazing. She has been working with this for a long, long time. Welcome to the show, Timilin. How are you?
Thank you so much, Nora, for having me. I am doing well today, and I'm excited to be here with you to talk about taxes.
Same here. I'm really excited for you to share all the information, all the knowledge that you know, and you experienced with your clients along the journey that you have. So, can you a little bit introduce to the audience who are you? What's your background?
Absolutely. So you've already said my name is Timlin Bowens. I am known as America's favorite EA. So as an enrolled agent, just like you, I am licensed through the Internal Revenue Service to represent taxpayers in all 50 states. And as a matter of fact, I tell people any U.S. taxpayer in the world. So with that EA designation, it gives me the privilege to represent taxpayers before the IRS, which means essentially, I'm standing in the gap for them. I'm their advocate to tell their financial story to the IRS, whether that is in tax debt negotiation, if that is getting a lien removed, getting a levy, which means the IRS is cleaning out their bank account, or they are taking part of their paycheck. I'm that person that says, hey, this is the situation, what's actually going on, and this is what the client can actually afford to pay, or in some instances, why they shouldn't be paying that amount at all. Um,
Go ahead.
I've been in the industry since 2011. So I had big CPA firm experience, but I was really drawn to being able to help people who didn't know how to fight the IRS, and that's why I chose to be an EA, and that's what I focus on is tax representation.
This is amazing. And actually, I know, I get this question all the time when I say enrolled agent with the IRS. People think I work with the IRS, and I try to explain to them, no, I represent you. I don't work with the IRS. But since you are the expert and you have been there way longer than I have been in the as an EA, so can you explain a little bit? I know you already covered a lot of it, but can you explain to the people a little bit more, why they shouldn't be afraid? You said you represent them, not the IRS. What is an EA? How do we get to be an EA? And why they should come to us as EA versus than CPAs?
Okay, let me make sure I don't miss anything here.
Yeah, no worries.
So the enroll designation has actually been around since 1884, around the time of the Civil War. And Congress gave us the ability as enrolled agents to advocate for taxpayers. Now, in order to become an enrolled agent, you have to pass a 3-part comprehensive test. And this test focuses only on taxation, right? So we have part 1, which is individuals, part 2, which is business, and then part 3, which is a mix of ethics, tax law, those types of things that are really important, right? But in addition to that, an enrolled agent, they've taken it a little bit more seriously than your non-credential preparers because there is a background check that we do have to pass. We have to be in tax compliance ourselves, right? So we have to make sure that all of our tax returns are prepared, and if we have any tax debt ourselves, that some arrangement has been made. But when somebody is looking at what type of tax professional they need, I always say you need to look at if you have a specialized situation. For example, if we have somebody who's a business owner, they're not going to want to go to a tax professional that doesn't work with businesses, right? Because each area of tax law is specialized. So when you are looking at having an issue with an IRS beyond tax preparation, it's really important that you take into consideration who's going to able who's going to be able to step in that gap and represent you. And only 3 licensed professionals can do that. The enrolled agent, of course. Then we do have certified public accountants and tax attorneys. The main difference within EA is that, again, our license is directly through the Internal Revenue Service, and it's focused in taxation. So while the other professionals can represent you before the IRS, when we're looking at the CPA license or a tax attorney, those are going to be state licenses and designations. So it is a little bit different, but of course, people want to do their due diligence to see what that credential means and what that professional specializes in.
Thank you so much. Thank you
You're
for this
welcome.
explanation. This is very important for people to know. Now I want to touch base on like the letters people are receiving now from the IRS. A lot of people like connecting, like they're afraid, like because they're receiving this letter, they might ignore the letter and find it later, and then they run to you. I'm sure you've seen it all. So can you like touch base on this? Like, what's the most common letter right now? Like, what have you seen? What should people do?
Absolutely. So they're kind of coming in phases right now, right? Because when COVID came, the IRS stopped enforcement to a certain extent. So I always like to remind people what one of my good tax sisters says: the IRS is slow, but not stupid. So for those people that owed prior to the pandemic, the IRS let up a little bit and they got kind of comfortable. So then in November, we saw millions of CP 504s come out. And a CP 504 is going to be the intent to levy. Now, that's the notice where you want to start sweating at that point, because the intent to levy means that you could potentially wake up to a cleaned out bank account if you haven't made an arrangement with the IRS. They could reach out to your employer as well and start garnishing your wages. But prior to getting there, like I said, these are people that owed before the pandemic. We have people now that owe for 2022, 2023 even, and they are receiving a CP 14. Now, a CP 14 is going to be a demand for payment. And when you receive that, the IRS is going to give a deadline for you to make that payment in full. Now, for your typical taxpayer, you may not be able to pay that bill in full. What I encourage people to do is breathe. I know that's the opposite of what our automatic response is when dealing with the IRS, but you want to make sure that you take a deep breath and you actually read the notice to see what the IRS is asking of you. So with the example of a CP 14 demand for payment, if you know that you can't pay that by the due date, you do have options, right? If you've been a compliant taxpayer, so you have your last 6 tax years filed, you don't think you're going to owe in the future because you do have withholding from your paycheck, you're not going exempt, or if you're a business owner, you're making those estimated tax payments, you may qualify for what's called a guaranteed payment plan. With this plan, you have 36 months to pay that debt in full. Now, mind you, there will be interest that still accrues, but you have something worked out with them to avoid the levy. Now, if you avoid that CP 14, you're going to get a reminder, then you will receive that intent to levy. And that's when you need to make sure that you take action fast.
Yeah, so I know like some states, they do send letters for even if you are a tax, you're a business owner and you
Mhm.
have client, they know like that client issue maybe a 1099 for you as a business owner. Some of them, like Illinois, because I live in Illinois, they would send actually a letter for your employee, for not employee, that for your clients, tell them that you owe them this money and trying to get payment sent to them from your clients directly. This is on the state level. Have you seen anything like that on a federal level?
Absolutely. So the same way that they will send a letter to your employer and say, "Hey, you need to withhold this amount from their wages," the IRS can do the exact same thing if you're a business owner doing contract work. So let's say, for example, we have a lot of people working in the gig economy right now.
Mm-hmm.
If the IRS is looking at your data and they know that you were getting a 1099 each year from DoorDash, they know that's your source of income. Guess who they're going to reach out to withhold part of the money that you've earned? You never want to have your situation where the IRS is controlling your cash flow. You always want to make the arrangement so you are still in control. That's why, again, number one, you want to breathe. Make sure that you are actually reading over the letter. I call them the IRS love letters. And then you are responding. So if you can't pay it off within 36 months, don't flip out. There is another option where you can do 72 months. And then even beyond that, there are options where I don't want to judge anyone's tax competency, but you may need to pull in a professional if you have to turn in financials to do what we call a tiered payment arrangement or a partial pay installment agreement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've seen some people actually really getting this thing worse when they try to solve the problem on their own, and then they come to the tax professional trying to ask for help when they already did the first step. Like, would you say you would still be able to help them if they did that first step and then they got things more complicated?
Absolutely. Um, Everybody's first step is going to be different. So I like to say to people, when you're cooking a recipe, we may get the same end result, but you may not start the same way that I start. I have a proven process that I take clients through, so it doesn't really matter where they've started. I'm still going to start in the same place to make sure that I have all of the information. And I talk about this too, because I do have free resources for people. There are three phases that you should go through when you're negotiating with the IRS. You want to make sure that you actually understand what's going on. Check out your tax transcripts to make sure that the amount that the IRS says that you actually owe. Then you also want to see if any additional penalties have been applied. You find that out by taking a look at your transcript. And no, that doesn't mean logging onto your IRS account. You have to actually log in and then click on the transcript because the overview on the account is not giving you the breakdown of all the penalties. Once you see that, you can see what happened, you can see what's eligible to be removed or forgiven, and then you fix any compliance issues you have. If you don't have a certain amount of returns filed, you're not going to have a properly set up installment agreement, which means you're paying more interest than you have to. Then from that point, you see what you can afford to pay based on the IRS standards. And now the ball's in your park and you can actually negotiate.
Awesome. And you can negotiate on their behalf since you're an enrolled agent, so they don't have to worry about that. Awesome. Thank you so much for all these great
Excuse
information,
me.
Timolin. Like, this is very helpful for everyone, I'm sure. And we need to bring you back on the show. Like, I know the time we have is not enough for talk about all your knowledge and things that like to get people actually the knowledge that you have. But for now, like, I want to ask you, how can people reach out to you if they decided to they want to work with you, get more information about what should they do and everything?
Yeah, so you can check out my website, which I believe is scrolling somewhere here, at www.bowenstaxsolutions.com. And in the top right corner, there is a book now button, and there you can find which consultation is a good fit for you. Because some people have started the process and maybe they just need a consultation for guidance, which I will give this disclaimer. It is a paid consultation because I'm not gatekeeping anything. I want you to win. I'm on a personal mission to fill the tax literacy gap one taxpayer at a time. So if we're seeing if you're a good fit for me to take the case, or to work with me and my firm, there's a call for that. If you just need some guidance because you want to DIY, there's also a call for that. But also let people know, because my book does stay pretty full. I do have a resource. I have a podcast, Tax Relief with Timlin Bowens. And on that podcast, I talk about the same things you've heard me talk about here, but in more detail. So, the process you should be going through before you negotiate with the IRS, understanding different tax notices, just so you're informed before you make that decision.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Timlin, this for all this information, guys. Go ahead and actually subscribe to Timlin podcast. And if you need help, further help, like book a call with her. You cannot get anyone to help you with any tax issue better than Timlin. She's amazing, and she is America's favorite EA. Thank you so much, Timlin, for being here with us. It's really our pleasure to have you on this show. This is Echoes of Impact with Noura. We'll be right back.